This video is brought to you by my lovely patrons. I saw the new Mean Girls, and it was really bad. The original Mean Girls is one of my favorite comedy movies of all time. It has some of the sharpest writing from the 2000s, and as far as satires from that time period go, this one has the most staying power. The film oozes with wit, its characters are instantly recognizable, and it supplied endless fodder for references in the years since its release. So back in 2018, when a musical adaptation of the film waltzed its way onto Broadway, the world met it with some hesitancy. Despite Tina Fey, the original screenwriter, coming on board to write the book, people, and by people I mean me, worried that it might become a shell of itself when brought to the stage. Broadway historically has had plenty of adaptations of films that have fallen flat on their face, sometimes literally, and for something as near and dear to many people as Mean Girls is, the possibility of this happening was more than likely. And that was, in fact, the case, but rather than people disliking the show because of how much they preferred the original, people mostly disliked it because it was bad. The songs were forced and rather trite, a lot of the characters were dumbed down to their basic archetypes, and the book was markedly less funny than the original film. Now, I actually saw this musical on Broadway back in 2018, and as an eager, little musical theater-loving 8th grader, I actually liked Mean Girls the musical, which is a little embarrassing for me to say. And I want to emphasize this now, despite me saying that Mean Girls is a bad musical, and agreeing with that, I do have some nostalgia for this show. What can I say? It's a disease. Most of the songs in the original musical, despite my understanding of their objective flaws, I can vibe to. Except for I'd Rather Be Me. That song just sucks ass.
So your best friend screwed you over, acted nice when she not nice.
Like, that has to be in the top 10 worst lyrics of all time, right? Anyway, Mean Girls still did very well, go figure, and launched a few tours to relish in its success. But they couldn't just stop there, no. Because soon after, they announced that they were going to make yet another Mean Girls movie, this one an adaptation of the musical. Now here's the thing. I really like movie musicals. I grew up watching The Sound of Music with my grandma. I adore movies like Little Shop of Horrors, Grease, Jesus Christ Superstar. Hell, when I was a little kid, I even liked that shitty Into the Woods movie. Don't worry, I grew out of that. So I want you to know that I'm not coming at this video from the perspective of some guy who hates musicals. Trust me, that's not the case. I made a video gushing over The Creature from the Black Lagoon musical, and that thing sucks dick. I went into this movie really wanting it to be good. I tried, but almost everything about this movie fails phenomenally. It seems that almost no one likes this movie. Around the week that it released, my entire TikTok For You page was people busting its balls. But why is that? Well, I have a few ideas. Much like the amount of perfect songs in the film Grease 2, this video comes to you in 10 parts. Part 1, the advertising. The first trailer for this new version of Mean Girls was released on November 8th, 2023, only 2 months before the film was set to release. And to the surprise of theater dorks like myself who knew what the movie was going to be, the trailer did not show any of the musical aspects of the film. To any average viewer of this trailer, it looked like they were just doing a reboot of Mean Girls, with a lot of dancing, but no singing at all. How odd. Other than that, though, can we just talk about how this is like a really bad trailer? Half of the jokes are references, the editing is really jarring, and overall it's just annoyingly self-aware.
Move. Hey, PG-13, please.
But it is certainly egregious that they don't even mention the fact that this is an adaptation of the Broadway musical. It's not just a mere reboot. Why did they do this? Well, it was theorized by many people on the internet that Mean Girls was not advertised as a musical because movie studios believe that general audiences don't like movie musicals. And that was recently proven correct by a studio executive at Paramount.
We didn't want to run out and say, it's a musical, because people tend to treat musicals differently. This movie is a broad comedy with music.
He then goes on to say,
To start off saying musical, you have the potential to turn off audiences. I want everyone to be equally excited.
and yeah, That's abundantly clear. The music, while the impetus for the reboot, was clearly not put at the forefront of this film. It's sloppy, somehow both overproduced and underproduced, and none of the songs are performed as if it's a musical. I'll touch on that a bit later, though. What is with this notion that people hate movie musicals? There are definitely some people who just won't touch the genre. Maybe they don't like music, perhaps they find the whole thing cringe, but I almost guarantee you that most people have at least one movie musical that resonates with them or is special to them in one way or another. At the very least, one they passively like. Why else would Frozen, The Little Mermaid, or Cinderella be as iconic today as they were when they were released? I'll tell you, it's not just because they're Disney, it's because they're good movies. Hell, literally as recent as 2 years ago, there was a show tune from a movie musical that was the biggest song in the world. People don't dislike movie musicals, they dislike bad movies. So they gave Mean Girls the old "don't tell them it's a musical" treatment. That's okay. Other movies have done that recently. Look at Wonka or The Color Purple. I didn't even know Wish was a musical. I thought that song playing in the trailer was just some crappy pop song. Well, it kinda was, but still. The next trailer they dropped wasn't gonna hide that it was a musical. They were gonna tell you what it was right from the start.
My name is Regina George.
Oh, that's it? Okay, this trailer also sucks. The rest of the trailer is just like one of those dramatic remixes to the rest of the song. We don't get to see any more of the number. The trailers are just hiding what this movie is going to be. That's not a good sign. Already these advertisements are banking on you knowing the original film, or at least the musical, despite flaunting that it's not your mother's Mean Girls. They're right. It's not. It's much worse. At this point, I'll be honest with you guys, I was still hopeful. I hold the original Mean Girls film so close to my heart. I rewatch it pretty much yearly at this point, and it influenced a lot of my writing from a young age. I just love the way it uses comedy to deal with real issues, the way the jokes stack on top of each other, the way each performance elevates those jokes to the nth degree. I can't stress enough how much I adore this movie. So I saw the new movie opening night, and I dragged my friend Riley along with me. Riley isn't a huge fan of musicals, despite us meeting through theater in high school, but we were on a road trip together when the movie came out, and he was nice enough to see it with me, even when he knew the movie probably wasn't gonna be for him. I told him pretty much everything I just told you before we went in, but oh my god, I didn't think I'd feel so bad for bringing a friend with me. I wanted to like it so bad. Part 2, punching down. To punch up a script is to read through it and make it funnier. First drafts of screenplays, even for some comedy films, often neglect to put the right amount of jokes within each scene, usually because they're just trying to get the story down. Because they're so focused on making sure they write something coherent, witty dialogue isn't always the priority. Some studios even hire people to take scripts for films or television shows and punch them up.
You know how I make a lot of money nowadays? I do punch-up on movies. And punch-up is where they have a script they're about to shoot, and it's not quite funny enough, and they bring in a bunch of writers and comedians, and we sit around the table and get drunk and just add jokes to it. And you can move scenes, cut stuff, go, that scene's too long, that scene should be moved up, that scene should be moved back, and you really kind of take the script apart and make it work.
I'm telling you this because the script for Mean Girls 2024 feels as if they took the script from the original film and punched it down. They made pretty much every joke in this movie less funny. This is done in many different ways. Some jokes are similar in essence, but are made longer, which ultimately kills them. This very simple scene in the original film.
I got in trouble for the most random things.
Where are you going?
Oh, I have to go to the bathroom.
You need the lavatory pass.
Okay, can I have the lavatory pass?
Nice try. Have a seat.
Turns into this.
Where do you think you're going there, Hotshot?
I need to urinate.
No way, Jose. First thing you need to do is ask permission. But the second thing you'll need is this lavatory pass that is shaped like a sperm whale. Get it?
Let me kill these jokes really quickly by explaining them. One has so few words and gets its point across very clearly, and the other tries to milk every second.
May I please have the lavatory pass?
No, you may not. You may go sit back down. You can go at lunch. Nice try, kiddo.
Jokes should be simple and understood by your audience, and the way most comics achieve this is by brevity.
I tried to walk into Target, but I missed.
The first scene introduces the concept that Katie doesn't know what school is supposed to be like. Therefore, she tries to just get up and go to the bathroom, a big no-no in American high schools. That is the joke. In the 2024 film, the scene muddies what is supposed to be the punchline by adding more and more to deviate from the original film.
That is shaped like a sperm whale. Get it?
Get it? In comedy, less is more. Like in this next example, just adding one word over-explains the joke.
What are you?
I'm a mouse. Duh.
I'm a sexy mouse. Duh.
That's so much worse. Nothing is implied anymore, therefore taking away what was funny about the original joke. This is further exemplified with the introduction of Caltine bars. In the original film, the joke of the scene plays out with almost no words.
What are Caltine bars?
They're these weird Swedish nutrition bars. My mom used to give them to the kids in Africa to help them gain weight. They're these weird nutrition bars my mom uses to lose weight.
Give me it.
With the given context that the two are trying to destroy Regina George's life, you understand what they're thinking. But the new film has to spell it out for you.
What is this, by the way? It's terrible.
Oh, it's a Caltine bar. Here, my mom used to give them to elderly people in Capito to help them gain weight.
We should, crush this up and put it in Regina's food.
What?
Subtlety is entirely out of the window because at the end of the day, this film stands on weaker legs than the original. The original film plants seeds from the very start that allow for jokes to pop up naturally throughout the entire movie. For example, at one point, Damien and Aaron Samuels walk in on Coach Carr making out with a student. This is immediately put into the burn book and later sets up the joke.
I pulled these two off each other. Coach Carr, step away from the underage girls.
And there are a ton of jokes like this in the film, from fetch to my boobs can predict the weather, even the bus hitting Regina George. This film loves to foreshadow and refer back to itself, and it does so cleverly and to its advantage. It trusts the audience to remember the movie they're watching and to be active viewers. The new Mean Girls not only doesn't trust its audience, it neglects this aspect of the original film. Some jokes are just changed for no reason. Take one of my favorites from the original film.
Her name is Caddy Heron. Where are you, Caddy?
That's me. It's pronounced like Katie.
My apologies. I have a nephew named Anthony, and I know how mad he gets when I call him Anthony. Almost as mad as I get when I think about the fact that my sister named him Anthony.
I mean, that's just absurd, memorable, and everybody knows someone with a name that's just slightly off like that. It's relatable. The reboot changes it into something much less relatable.
I will commit that to memory. KD, like the Canadian songstress KD Lang, and Heron, like the illegal street drug.
It's so strange to strip Mean Girls of its relatability, one of the most compelling parts of the original film. There are some changes that I want to point out that may not be objectively worse, but I still hate them and they didn't make me laugh. Like, the simplicity of this next line will always trump the complicated mess of this new one.
Laura, I don't hate you because you're fat. You're fat because I hate you.
Alyssa, I'm sorry I said you look like you comb your hair with a chicken bone. I know you're vegetarian.
I'm not saying that these jokes are sacred and can't be made funnier. I'm just saying that they weren't. They all have a severe lack of punch to them.
I think I'm joining the mathletes.
No. You cannot do that. That is social suicide.
You cannot join mathletes. That is socially ruinous.
Really? Really? The question likely on your mind is why. Why did they do this? Why take something as deeply iconic as Mean Girls and remove everything quotable? I have one theory. There's this sort of unspoken rule in comedy that once you've made a joke, you can't make it again. This is the part where I sympathize with Tina Fey here. She already told these jokes once before in a screenplay, and if she were to tell them again, they wouldn't get laughs from the audience. Or at least, they wouldn't get real laughs. So much of comedy comes from surprise. You're surprised the first time you hear Regina George say, "Boo, you whore," or Karen say she has ESPN or something. Both of those lines have become deeply iconic because of that. But if you were to hear these jokes you knew for a second time and told by other people, well, they would become less funny. They're no longer jokes, they're statements. It's like a scratch and sniff sticker. Over time, it loses that ripe scent it once had, and eventually you get tired of smelling the same old banana.
They don't realize that if I said the joke that they're shouting, they're not gonna laugh. they're gonna clap.
Right.
And no one comes to a comedy show to clap.
So, Tina Fey, being a titan of comedy, definitely understands this and attempted to rewrite her script so that it had the same story and tone as the original, just with different jokes. And that's where it becomes clear that Mean Girls wasn't really in need of a reboot. The jokes are different, yes, but they also feel forced. They feel like someone crammed square jokes into a circle-shaped screenplay. And because of that, the film still gets no laughs. When I saw this movie in theaters, the only time people laughed was when they saw something they knew. Be that a joke from the original film that made it through the rewrite, an actor, or a piece of imagery. And to me, that's just sad. I actually really like Tina Fey. I think she's a brilliant comedy writer, but this is an unfair task for any comedy writer to have to do. I also think that she's very noticeably been taken down a peg in these past few years. Okay, I'm gonna get to some serious stuff really quickly. If you haven't heard, Tina Fey garnered some controversy back in 2020 because of a few pieces of dialogue from the original Mean Girls that did not age well, and the use of blackface in her show 30 Rock. This criticism is more than valid, and represents the weakest and hackiest parts of both Mean Girls and 30 Rock. That said, I think Tina Fey took this criticism the wrong way. She was being criticized for using race itself as the butt of her jokes, and luckily those types of jokes in the original Mean Girls and even the Mean Girls musical are absent from this film. But this necessary sanitization of certain jokes has trickled down onto the jokes that didn't need changing, the jokes that everyone liked and worked. And that sort of sanitization not only translated to the jokes themselves, but the spirit of the jokes. The new Mean Girls is, yes, less problematic than the original, but it's also bland. There's no edge, and there's no surprise, and that's just a damn shame. Part 3, Cast a Movie Musical Challenge. Impossible. If you're not aware, the live-action movie musical has been a decaying genre within the past decade or so. You have your critically acclaimed heavy hitters like La La Land and Tick, Tick, Boom, and the occasional critically panned but still massive hit like The Greatest Showman, but other than that, there's supposedly a certain stigma surrounding movie musicals, right? Like that one executive at Paramount whose name doesn't deserve to be spoken said, people treat them differently. But why is that? Is that even true? Well, let's take a look at a couple of recent movie musicals that may have set this expectation. Dear Evan Hansen, Cinderella, The Prom, Cats, what do these films have in common? They're bad. These massive flops unfortunately fall much louder than small hits like Tick, Tick, Boom rise, leading big executives at film studios looking at these numbers and incorrectly assuming that they failed because they're musicals. They didn't, though. They failed because they weren't great movies to begin with. But I think there's another factor that a lot of these recent musical films have in common, even critically acclaimed ones like West Side Story or Wonka. They are cast so poorly. Ben Platt as Evan Hansen looked like a 40-year-old man LARPing as a high schooler, further heightening the film's narrative that Evan Hansen is a piece of shit. Ansel Elgort acted like he was thrust into the lead of his high school's musical a week before they opened and had only ever played lacrosse his entire life. James Corden is a cat. I rest my case. The problem here is that these films aren't cast with the actor's musicality in mind, they're cast for their acting chops or their star power, and the latter, it seems, is far more important. Why else would we see Timmy playing Willy Wonka? It's because of his beautiful eyes. And that brings us to Mean Girls, the most recent movie musical to hit theaters, in which, again, many roles were not cast for their musical talent. Some of them not even for their acting talent. Take Christopher Briney, who played Aaron Samuels in the new film. This guy could not be any more boring.
Friend Chris is having a Halloween party. Would you want to come to that?
Aaron Samuels at the beginning of the original film is portrayed as a very likable but easily manipulated guy. Regina, the moment she finds out about Katie's crush on him, starts to date him again, acting as fuel to the fire of Katie's vengeful plot. But ultimately, towards the end of the film, we remember that Aaron is actually a person. You know, who has, like, feelings and stuff. When he confronts Katie at her party for having become Regina, it's really powerful, and it makes Katie realize that maybe pretending to be someone else is not the solution to all of her problems. Aaron becomes yet another voice of reason in the film, which is why you like him, and you're happy that he ends up with Katie at the end. Christopher Briney does not have that same understanding of Aaron as a character, as is evident by this interview.
He, like, sort of unintentionally
like stokes the flames of this feud, and he sort of becomes a little pawn in each of their games. Like they both, Regina and Katie, take their turns, like sort of like pushing him. He's just sort of there, you know, and he takes some blows, but he's just there.
This is one of the funniest takes I've ever seen an actor have about a character they are playing, and it makes his boring-ass performance make so much more sense. As an actor, you have to be on your character's side. You can't just say that your character is a pawn. Yes, that may be how your character functions in the story, but you can't just play him like a piece of wood. That's how you get boring performances.
Don't tell me to shut up.
What? Aaron, sit down.
You are a clone.
Imagine if Bryan Cranston was just like, Walter White is evil, or Aaron Paul was just like, Jesse is stupid. Not only would that be awful character analysis, but it would make Breaking Bad so dull because we'd be watching performances that only hit one note. People are complicated, and so much of the craft of acting is about unraveling a character and learning how to embody them by figuring out how they relate to you. This is just ridiculous, and let me be clear, it's not entirely his fault. This is the fault of the director, who did not help this guy out at all. And on top of that, he can't sing, so they just cut out all of his vocal parts. Jenna Fisher from that podcast about The Office is here, and I don't think that she's a bad actor, but she definitely does not elevate the poorly written dialogue she's given.
This is not who I know you to be.
This is not who I know you to be. Who talks like that?
Angry.
And finally, we need to talk about Angourie Rice as Katie. I've seen Rice get a lot of hate for this performance on the internet. It seems that she's everyone's new favorite celebrity to roast. In all honesty, though, I just feel kind of bad for her. Not because I think her performance was good, it wasn't, but because she was just really poorly cast. And that's not entirely her fault. In the original musical, the role of Katie is very vocally intensive. In literally her first song, she starts belting like crazy. It's ridiculous. There's no need for her to be doing that on the first day of school. Katie is written very energetically and given a lot of vocal parts to represent those large bursts of energy.
I can't even watch when she touches his hair, and I watch the snake eat a cow. Regina needs to be toppled. Sorry, Gretchen, I swear, we'll get our party now.
So one would think they would cast someone who at the very least can hold a tune. Well, let's look at that same vocal part in the new film.
I can't even watch when she touches his hair, and I watch the snake eat a cow. I swear we'll get our party now.
Okay, well, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, that shot is crazy. The cinematography in this movie is so unsettling. Notice how the camera is like always on some sort of crane or jib. It's constantly moving in these nauseating sweeping motions. It's like every shot of Mark Wahlberg in The Departed, but directed by Martin Scorsese's character from Shark Tale. Yeah, that's a joke just for me. Also, you can hear the pitch correction churning on Rice's vocals. Not only is the melody opted down to accommodate for this, but it loses almost all of the energy the original had. They can try to emulate that energy with close-up fisheye shots all they want, but it does not compensate for the lack of prowess Angourie Rice's voice has. I don't generally have a problem with pitch correction, and people who do typically don't know much about modern music production. It's important to note that pitch correction is used on pretty much everything nowadays, and that's not because pop stars can't sing as well as they used to be able to or anything like that. It's just because, well, we can. If we can make Ariana Grande sound that much better on her new single, why wouldn't we? My problem with pitch correction only exists surrounding musicals, actually. There's been this really awful recurrence on a lot of Broadway cast albums lately in which they use pitch correction way too much in a way that inhibits the original performance. Just take a listen to the ending of the song Giants in the Sky from the cast album of the most recent revival of Into the Woods.
Awesome, scary, wonderful giants in the sky.
Do you hear that?
In the sky.
That's bad pitch correction on a Broadway cast album. These performers sing these songs 8 times a week. They don't need that much pitch correction. There's something so lovely about the original cast album of Into the Woods and so many others from before this onslaught of overproduction. Imperfections are more realistic, and they add life to music that frankly needs life to function. We're telling stories here, not making the most perfect pop song. That's why the music frustrates me so much in Mean Girls, and the overuse of autotune ends up feeling like a lack of respect for the craft of theater. I know it's a film and not a live musical, but it should at the very least attempt to capture that raw energy exhibited on the stage. Unfortunately, Angry Rice's acting performance does not make up for her singing, as a lot of it is incredibly understated and kind of hard to read. I don't entirely blame Angry Rice for this unfortunate casting, but I also don't think she tried all too hard in this role. Her performance feels very phoned in. I also don't understand why 2 of the leads in this movie musical can't sing. It makes Rice look really bad, and ultimately that's the fault of the director and whoever decided to cast people who needed vocal training. There are some good performances here. Renee Rapp as Regina, Avantika as Karen, even Auli'i Cravalho as Janice. But unfortunately, the text of the film and the surrounding performances could hardly save them. This all leads to something that I think is really obvious about Hollywood, which is that they don't respect movie musicals. They must view them as antiquated because big executives and the people they put in charge of directing these musicals clearly don't understand them. They trust audiences so little to go see a movie musical that they neglected to advertise it as one, and they didn't cast someone who can sing in the lead role. After all, you might treat it differently. Part 4, the music. Hello. Editing Max here. I record these videos alone most of the time. Every once in a while I'll have my friend Kim help me out, but for this one, I was riding solo, and unfortunately for this next section, the audio got really messed up. I think what happened is my XLR cord was like pinched by a drawer I have right next to where I record. And so it ended up sounding like I was recording next to a bowl of Rice Krispies. This is what it sounds like. The song. And I toiled over what I was going to do for this section. I thought maybe I would just record the audio and try to fool you as if it was a creative decision, or maybe I would just dub over everything, you know, do some nice ADR. It's what we in the industry call Madam Webbing now. It's where you just re-record all the audio and pretend like you recorded it day of. But I decided to just be honest with you guys and just re-record the audio. So that is what you're going to be seeing. I value being real on this channel much more than I value creating something that is seamless. So here's the seams. Just exposing my seams for everybody. Anyway, let's talk about the music in Mean Girls. So you've already gotten a glimpse at what the music sounds like in this movie, but let me be clear, it gets worse. Now, I mentioned I have a little bit of nostalgia for the original Mean Girls musical, as I saw it on Broadway when I was in middle school and enjoyed it quite a bit. That said, I don't think Mean Girls is a very good musical. It follows a lot of trends in contemporary musical theater that are quite played out, the performances are all over the place, and the jokes are also pretty bad. Hell, some of the ones I mentioned are from the musical.
Carry this lavatory pass as a carving of a whale.
May I please have a lavatory pass?
Nice try. You can go at lunch.
And the music is tonally fucked. The songs range from a rocky opening number to a poppy I Want song to a by the books show tune with a tap break. There's even a really unfortunate trap-inspired party song. It's all over the place and is filled with much more style than substance. Some people may be drawn to the varying genres throughout the musical. I know I was when I first saw it, but when you put a magnifying glass up to some of these songs, they start to unravel pretty quickly. The lyrics here are rough.
He ran from me, literally ran from me, and being Kenyan, he ran fast. I got new things to try, like high school and skateboards and rapping and Starbucks venti chai. Me, they stare at their little screens. Plus, it's crowded with all these teens. Hi, teens! I'll subscribe. I will say you make me mad, and if you treat me bad, I'll say you're bad.
I've always been of the opinion that a musical score is only as good as its lyricist, and I think that's where Mean Girl's biggest folly lies.
So your best friend screwed you over, acted nice when she not nice.
I'm sorry, I just can't get over that lyric. That's the first lyric in the song. Talk about a thesis statement. I will stand by the fact that the instrumentation on a lot of these songs are really fun and quite good. I love the classical musicality of Where Do You Belong and Stop, and Regina George's leitmotif that plays as soon as she enters and throughout the entire show. Overall, what we have here is a mixed bag of music with pretty consistently bad lyrics. So, how does the film adaptation of Mean Girls translate the music to the screen? They turned every number into a boring pop song. And by that, I mean they took every instrumental, every inch of theatrical flair that filled the Broadway show, and dumbed it down. Songs that originally sounded like this.
I'm astounding and nonplussed. I'm filled with captain lust. Does skyward that we must all sweating at the gym.
Turn into this.
I'm astounded and nonplussed. I am filled with calculus.
Because of this, the music in this movie is lifeless. Any tinge of humanity present in the original musical has been altered into something that focus groups of 10 to 12-year-olds deemed satisfactory. This is a semi-recent problem, as it's much less common for films to be musicals nowadays, but people have varying levels of suspension of disbelief when it comes to modern cinema, particularly modern movie musicals. People are fine seeing cars fly into space with Vin Diesel, but the moment someone starts singing, some people start to question the reality of the film. The new Mean Girls did everything it could to make those people comfortable. The songs are bland and commercially produced. Gone are the upbeat show tunes, any vocal stylings, dancing, instrumentals, anything that even smells of musical theater has been cut from this new adaptation. They literally added people in the background of shots playing instruments to prevent people from asking, where's the music coming from? Because God forbid someone breaks out into song. That's not realistic. The film ended up sacrificing these qualities so that people who don't like movie musicals would sit through it, rather than making, I don't know, a good movie that everyone will like. On top of changing every song to sound as little like a show tune as possible, some numbers are just entirely cut from the show, despite them being both enjoyable and necessary to the story. Where Do You Belong and Stop are both cut, depriving Damien from ever getting a real song. The song Meet the Plastics is one of the biggest downgrades from the original musical. The original version has this really fun, cacophonous, overlapping part where all three of the Plastics sing different melodies and lyrics about who they are. But the film adaptation only retains Regina's part and keeps in some choice lyrics. Ouch. Another victim of this show tune massacre is the song Apex Predator, a song that to begin with didn't sound much like a show tune. The new version is given this dancey beat. It sort of sounds like something Drake would rap over on that shitty house record he did.
Yeah, just know my condo is the crack spot.
Well, it's not Drake bad, but it feels incredibly out of place here. The lyrics still are clunky and awkward, and it makes you question their priorities when it comes to rewriting certain things, yet leaving others to flounder.
And Janice is great. She does not have this power. People literally cower. Janice can do that.
Like, syllabically, these lyrics are fucked. Each verse consistently breaks free of its own meter, leading the songs to sound like the music and lyrics were written in different rooms and then forced together, neither compromising for the betterment of the song. Like, look at these lyrics from the song I'd Rather Be Me.
We're supposed to all be ladies and be nurturing and care. Is that really fair? Boys get to fight, we have to share.
It's so awkward, and lyrics like that pop up throughout the entire song. This is a problem much more rampant in the original musical because, well, there are more songs, but the fact that they left them in seems like a genuine disregard of criticism. These aren't necessarily hot takes. Anybody who knows even a little bit about songwriting or poetry understands these lyrics are lazy, yet they kept them in. Both of Regina George's songs, Someone Gets Hurt and World Burn, suffer a lot. While Renee Rapp's voice sounds lovely on these tracks, her hushed and whispered vocals stunt the song's understandability. They become really catchy pop songs, but for a musical, they again feel rather out of place. This is not helped by the fact that both numbers are shot like music videos, with really cool imagery, but ultimately not doing much in the story.
I truly cared. Was I the fool?
I've seen this movie a lot now, and I still can't understand what she's saying at certain points.
To sand beneath my lieutenant here.
In musical theater, and I'm sorry for stating the obvious here, you need to be able to understand the words people are singing. So, in this new song they gave Katie to introduce her character, it's interesting to me that they had her sing like this.
Try not held back. Oh no, that's not a part of my plan. That's not the me that I am.
Like, we know what Angry Rice is capable of, right? You didn't have to give her a tongue twister. I feel like the human brain is conditioned to listen to different songs in different ways. Like, when listening to a musical theater song, people are more likely to listen to the lyrics because those lyrics tend to have some bearing on the story they're watching. When it comes to pop music, however, people are used to listening to it in a much more passive manner, meaning people can sort of doze in and out of it. I'm not saying pop music is meant to be listened to that way, but I am saying that it often is. So, when we're first introduced to a character, and they're singing like this.
I used to think I would spend every second I have right where my store.
The hushed intonation of her voice, along with the understated instrumental, instantly registers in your brain as a bedroom pop song, not a show tune. Already, you're not listening to the lyrics. I have a pretty embarrassing confession to make. I actually kinda like the song Revenge Party from the original Mean Girls musical. I wouldn't, put it on in front of anybody, but it is on my musical theater playlist, and I don't skip it when I'm alone in the car. The chorus is really catchy, and it has a lot of traits that my favorite show tunes include. It cleverly montages a chunk of the story, it has really energetic ensemble parts, you can scream in your car, and it has infectious harmony. And in the film, it's likely the strongest song. It does move the story at least a little bit, and it carries way more energy than all of the other songs. Low bar. However, it too is not without its flaws. For starters, lyrics that are pretty shockingly bad from the original are kept in.
Imagine a party with dresses and cake, and singing and dancing and cake.
Which, again, they had every opportunity to punch up these lyrics, and they didn't, which means they must be pretty damn proud of them. They also added this lyric, which caught me way off guard.
I'll bring the glow sticks.
I'll bring balloons and we'll have chocolate ice cream cones.
So the first time I watched this movie, I thought that Janice was saying the loons. Like, the old-timey word for crazy people. And I laughed so hard because that's so out of pocket. And I was thinking, you can't call them that anymore. I then realized that this is one of those old people making up slang things where they shorten a word just like those goddamn kids are doing these days. Loons means balloons. But we all agree she said the loons, right?
I'll bring balloons.
There's also this lyric.
We'll get a pinata, 'cause that would be fun. And play dress up in Barbies and tag.
Genuine question, really quick. Did a toddler write this? Also, the instrumental for this song is noticeably worse. Gone is the energetic and full band. Instead, there's this MIDI horn section.
It's a revenge party, a party that ends with somebody's head on a spike.
Where's the energy? They just copied the production of Taylor Swift's Shake It Off. That song is 10 years old. Nothing about this new production feels modern. In fact, it feels older than the timeless nature of the original version.
It's a revenge party with your two best friends. It's like a party with revenge is what it's like.
Did they bring the loons in to make this song? All of these songs are show tunes turned into pop songs, and you can't do that without drastically worsening your musical. You deprive the music from its storytelling nature when you prioritize the aspects that make a song popular rather than the story and the characters. When you shift the way a performer is mixed, the production of a song, and the lyrics all towards whether or not they will blow up on TikTok, you lose the most important part of a show tune: to tell a story. Most pop artists, the ones who are successful anyway, still focus on putting compelling storytelling into their songs, along with interesting and original sounds. There's a reason Olivia Rodrigo is one of the biggest artists in the world right now, and it's not just because her songs sound interesting. They have something to say, and she focuses on that just as much as the cool synthy sound you hear in the instrumental of Deja Vu. Songs can be multifunctional and layered. They can sound interesting and still have meaning, and they can be theatrical and still be massively successful. Neglecting one aspect for the other can only hurt you. Okay, let's get back to the original set. Part 5. Remember this? A sure sign of a weak movie, in my opinion, is when it feels the need to constantly make reference to something that the audience is familiar with. This trait is really common with sequel films, especially ones that don't have the same cast as the previous films, so it was obviously gonna pop up here. For example, one of the most iconic lines from the original film is changed into sort of a wink at the audience.
So fetch.
What is fetch?
Oh, it's like slang from England.
That is so fetch.
What is fetch?
It's like slang from an old movie. Juno, I think.
Which is not only a weaker joke, but an unfunny reference. Who is that joke for? Do you really think that the middle schoolers this film is targeted towards have seen Juno? A film about teen pregnancy? And yes, this film is obviously for middle schoolers. Half of the choreography is TikTok dances. Unlike the original Mean Girls film, which I previously praised for carefully planting seeds for jokes through its runtime and referring back to them, this reboot relies on the seeds from the original film to act as fodder for new jokes and moments. So Lindsay Lohan has a small cameo in this film as the host of the Mathletes competition, and her inclusion is so hyped up. There's literally a drum roll. They treated this like a Marvel reveal, as if the audience is gonna applaud when she's on screen.
Welcome to the ICMT State
Brother! That's so funny to me.
Well, this has only ever happened once before. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a tie.
Remember? The movie! This film does everything in its power to reference things that you recognize, because if they're not gonna get the laughs from the new jokes, they might as well cash in a couple of cheapies while they're at it. This is one of those rare references within a reference, a referenceception, if you will. You see, they're referencing Ariana Grande's music video for her hit song Thank You Next, which itself is a parody of Mean Girls. Please laugh. There's also a few moments that exist only to service some sort of closure from the original film. These are some of the weirdest moments to me because they only make sense if you've seen the original movie. Like, they make Principal Duval and Miss Norbury married in this version, which is a nod to the two of them flirting in the original film.
Okay, fine, but you are walking the dogs every morning for the rest of the week.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you too.
I don't mind this, but it does mean that every scene with these two is stripped from the original joke that Principal Duval has a crush on the recently divorced Miss Norbury, and the running character detail that Miss Norbury was just divorced, which, I don't know, just makes those characters less interesting. Another moment they reference from the original film is the randomly iconic October 3rd line.
On October 3rd, he asked me what day it was. It's October 3rd.
In the new film, they make a very big deal out of this moment, and it's just much clunkier. The original film has a narration from Katie throughout the entire runtime, but the reboot neglected this aspect, so to include this moment, they had to awkwardly write in a scene where Katie talks about Aaron to Janice and Damien.
On October 3rd, he asked me what day it was.
What day is it?
It's October 3rd.
And now, would you look at that? What was once a throwaway joke now has a choir so that you laugh. They also managed to squeeze in the line, "She doesn't even go here," 2 times, which is just another level of pandering.
She don't even go here. But she does not go here.
The film can't even be helped from referencing itself, not in the good way that I mentioned earlier, but in this sort of cringe meta way.
Suna, I'm sorry I said you were dragging during Revenge Party. There was just like so much pressure on us to move the story forward through montage, like, you know how it is.
I regret ever giving that number praise for moving the story forward. Why? You did one good thing and you had to ruin it. This movie claims it's not your mom's Mean Girls, but it still hopes that your mom is watching. But she's not. She's dead. this movie killed her. Part 6, good moments. You know, I don't like to be a hater all the time, so I thought I'd say some good things about this stupid movie, especially before I get to some of the real heavy-hitting criticism. So here are some good things about Mean Girls 2024. I like how Kevin G gets together with Gretchen Wieners at the end of this movie. That's way better than forcing him with Janice, and they justify it pretty well by making Gretchen, like, kinda smart in this one.
Because you know what? I have a 140 IQ, very toned legs, and my parents love me.
Which is kind of forced, and they could have set up a little earlier, but hey, I'm being positive. I like this joke that they kept in from the original film, at least in essence.
Girls are made deranged by what's called hormones. Hormones. W-H-O.
That might be the only joke in the film that got a genuine laugh out of me, so kudos. What else? I like that they gave Ashley Park, the original Gretchen Wieners on Broadway, a small part in the movie. I extra like that she had a French accent, which I said she couldn't do in my Ratatouille musical video. Sorry, Ashley. It's better in this movie than it was in that, so, you know. Good job. I like the Renee Rapp song at the end credits, at least the part that's on TikTok. I don't really care for the song as a whole, but that TikTok part, super catchy.
Get a number, get a name, get a good thing while you can.
Renee Rapp actually did very well in this movie. She's the only actor that I feel brought a lot to the table with her character. Of course, she played the role on Broadway and had a lot of time with it, but still, I think her performance is easily the best part of the film. I liked when I saw the movie for the third time in theaters, but the audio kept cutting out really badly, so I had to get a refund and come back and see it again. That was very funny. Finally, I like when I saw this in theaters opening night, there was a big group of middle schoolers sitting 3 rows behind me, and when Aaron Samuels first appeared on screen, a girl shouted, "He's fugly." That was the best joke in the whole movie. And that's it. Yay, positivity! Part 7, Regina George. I don't like to place any objectivity in the meaning of art. I'm of the belief that art is in the hands of its audience as soon as it leaves the hands of its creator, and any objective meaning to art is whatever it means to you. That said, I do think that Mean Girls has a pretty easy to understand intended theme. Everyone deals with their own baggage, and sometimes people are really mean. These things are both true, and it does not mean that people who are unkind are allowed to be that way, or that everyone who has gone through a lot is bound to be mean, but sometimes that's just how it is. I think this is a really important message for most people to hear to help them navigate through their young lives. And it's equally important for adults who still have to deal with shitty people all the time. Under all of this, the film is also about how we all can become mean ourselves if we're not careful, something that happens to the best of us. The themes of Mean Girls on Broadway, along with the new film, are, in my opinion, intended to be the same as the original film. In fact, it's stated in the very first song.
Sometimes mean is what you are, mean is easier than nice.
And I would say that, if not dumbed down a little bit, is the same theme as the original.
And though mean can take you far, maybe this will make you think twice.
Sometimes people are just mean and need to be mean to others to feel better about themselves. The best thing we can do is stand up for ourselves and be nice to each other. And I think we can all agree that those are very valuable themes, but my problem is that I don't think that this new film does a very good job at presenting them. To fully realize this, we need to take a look at the thematic functions of certain moments and characters in the film. Let's start with the big one. Regina George. Regina George in the original film functions to represent the most extreme type of mean person that exists in the world. She comes from a privileged background, she's formed a clique of yes men to follow her around, and she destroys anyone who has wronged her through manipulation. She's relentless, and her arc ends with her getting literally hit by a bus. Subtle, I know. This leaves the audience realizing for themselves, along with Katie, that Regina George is just a person. A deeply flawed and unkind person, but a real person person who doesn't deserve death. The new film keeps most of this, including the bus, but it paints Regina George in a less clear way, which results in the muddying of its message. There's a general lack of brutality in Regina George in the 2024 reboot that just detracts from the film's theme. Yes, she's mean in this movie, but not nearly as mean as before. Take the Burn Book, changing lines like,
Trang Pak is a grotesque little biatch.
Still true.
Don Schweitzer is a fat virgin.
Still half true.
to,
Don Schweitzer is a horny shrimp.
Well, she's taller now.
like, that's way clunkier. You literally have to explain the joke. It's also just not as mean. To deprive Regina George of her unaltering viciousness is to strip the film of its satirical nature. Like, look how mean she is to Katie when talking to Aaron Samuels in the original film.
And okay, look, I'm not saying she's a stalker, but she saved this Kleenex you used, and she said she's gonna do some kind of African voodoo with it to make you like her.
But in the new version, she's written as more passive-aggressive, even passively manipulative.
I don't know, I guess I just have like a lot of like unresolved trauma from how things ended with us.
Regina
becomes a little pawn.
Not only is that kind of manipulation hard to portray in films, especially without a voiceover like the original one so smartly decided to have, but her ulterior motives in the original film are instantly recognizable. She just starts making up rumors and doubling down on them until she gets what she wants. This is the first time we fully understand just how mean Regina George is, and it's just sort of wasted here with this sloppily written scene. More cultural context is necessary here. It expects the audience to know that in 2024, sometimes people fake trauma to gain attention. But even then, this is sort of a questionable writing decision. Like, I'm not sure if painting your main villain as someone who fakes trauma is really the move. The original gets right to the point. You only need the context the movie has given you of who Katie is to understand that Regina is lying. Lying to get what she wants. This new version is just so much weaker and will date itself the moment that faking trauma isn't a thing we as a society understand to be true. A big part of the original film is Regina and Janice's backstory, and while it's never explicitly explained by Janice due to her embarrassment over the topic, it remains an underlying motivation for her to ruin Regina's life throughout the film. This is one of the most cleverly revealed parts of the original film, because for the first half, we question what exactly happened between the two of them, all for it to be revealed by Regina out of the blue.
We were best friends in middle school. I know, right? It's so embarrassing. She'd be like, why didn't you call me back? And I'd be like, why are you so obsessed with me? I was like, Janice, I can't invite you because I think you're a lesbian. I mean, I couldn't have a lesbian at my party. There are gonna be girls there in their bathing suits.
Now, at this point in the film, we completely understand the vicious type of person that Regina George is, but now we can see exactly why Janice hates her so much. She tells the story of how badly she bullied Janice as if she had every right to do so. It's a fascinating piece of writing that lets the audience in on information incredibly naturally, without sitting you down and explaining how fucked up Regina George is. The 2024 film sits you down and explains how fucked up Regina George is.
Regina had been making fun of Janice this entire time, and everyone but her knew it.
And it's a much more convoluted backstory that entirely ventures away from reality. Instead of Regina explaining how Janice got jealous of her middle school boyfriend, Damien explains that they used to collect Beanie Babies, and then Janice came out to her and Regina was an ally, but then Regina kissed Janice in a game of Spin the Bottle and made fun of her for being obsessed with her, and then Janice set Regina's Beanie Baby on fire.
Janice took her Bunsen burner and torched the doll. And Regina's backpack caught on fire a little bit.
That's so much less relatable. I'm positive that a lot of young girls related to Janice's backstory in the original. It's a story of middle school love and backstabbing betrayal. The new version sort of keeps that, but ultimately turns it into a joke.
It's these bastards. And they were everywhere.
It's just so bizarre, and it further convolutes the rest of the film. Like a very simple and mean joke like this
Oh my god, it's her dream come true, diving into a big pile of girls.
turns into this.
Watch, it's either gonna be some really crappy art or really good fire.
And frankly, that's just not as clever or mean. Am I crazy? This movie is called Mean Girls. Girls are still mean to each other. They still call each other sluts and whores, and they're still homophobic. It's a real problem, and pretending like it's not just adds to it. We've grown as a society a considerable amount since 2004, but it's ridiculous to act like a lot of the problems in Mean Girls don't exist today. That's why the movie is still so popular. It's still relatable and funny. This isn't either of those things. The most mind-boggling part to me is that Regina actually gets redeemed at the end of the film. After she gets hit by a bus, Katie sees her at the dance, and they have a very strange heart-to-heart.
I'm sorry about the bus. I feel like it's all my fault.
No, it's not your fault. Okay, don't apologize for things that aren't your fault. I know I have to change. And that it was harsh. And people say that I'm a bitch.
This is so weird to me because not only is it counterproductive to the themes of the story, but this worse writing of Regina trickles down and makes Katie worse too. Katie needs to be able to apologize to Regina without her accepting the apology because Katie needs to come to this conclusion on her own. Instead of Katie realizing the errors of her ways and correcting them herself, the story is rewritten so that other people force her to do the right thing. Regina is just the cherry on top. For example, instead of deciding to go back to school after everyone thinks that she pushed Regina in front of the bus, her mom tells her she has to go back.
Maybe you should come back and be homeschooled again for a while.
No. Only thing worse than going back would be not going back.
I was thinking maybe I should go back to being homeschooled.
Sweetie, no. It's too small, me and you.
Instead of realizing that she is in the wrong for judging the girl she's up against at the math competition, they make the other girl call her a slut.
Miss Carolyn Kraft seriously needed to pluck her eyebrows. Her outfit looked like it was picked out by a blind Sunday school teacher. And that's when I realized making fun of Carolyn Kraft wouldn't stop her from beating me in this contest.
Nice to meet you. Whatever, slut.
And finally, instead of naturally realizing that Regina deserves happiness as much as she does at the spring fling, Regina is actively nice to her at the dance and forgives her, which is so out of character.
I like you.
This scene is actually in the original Mean Girls deleted scenes, but 1, they deleted it, and 2, it's written so much better in that version. Regina is still really mean and passive-aggressive, and yes, she does forgive Katie, but she doesn't outright say she likes her.
I feel like it's all my fault.
Stop trying to make this about you. I'm the one that got hit by the bus.
This entirely derails the relatability of the film. I'm sure we've all met Regina Georges in our lives, but I doubt they've ever said "I like you" to us in earnest. I know the ones that I've met haven't. I don't 100% hate the idea of this scene, but the way it's executed makes no sense. Creating this weird hypothetical that Tina Fey wishes happened in high school paints a much less realistic picture and just confuses everything. And listen, I understand the idea of adding more nuance to your characters to flesh them out more. But the thing is, Regina George was nuanced. It's explicitly stated that she has a difficult home life.
I mean, her parents totally don't sleep in the same bed anymore, if that's what you mean.
And she's incredibly smart and observant, which makes her evil acts so much more brutal.
Waddell on South Boulevard?
Caller ID.
Not when you connect from information. Oh, this is Susan from Planned Parenthood. I have her test results. If you could have her give me a call as soon as she can. It's urgent. Thank you.
Regina George was already a rather realistically written character, with a bit of exaggeration here and there for comedy's sake. Her character made plenty of sense, especially considering what her upbringing was like, what her mom is like.
Is there alcohol in this?
Oh God, honey, no. What kind of mother do you think I am? Why do you want a little bit? Because if you're gonna drink, I'd rather you do it in the house.
Regina George just changes. It robs Katie of the realization that she needs to change because she's just told it's not her fault.
I like you.
Why? Why do you like her? Nothing Regina does anymore is motivated by herself, it's motivated by what the movie wants her to do. She likes Katie simply because the movie's about to end and everyone needs to be happy. It's just heartless and unrealistic. And if you're gonna comment that I'm taking that scene out of context, I'm not, but here's the joke they throw in after she says that line.
I like you.
But this medicine makes me like everyone, so.
But it's still written into the script with the intention of redeeming Regina, and it still doesn't make sense. No one writes something into a script for no reason. That wasn't a throwaway line. It's just so strange. But don't worry, Regina George isn't the only character they made worse. It's all of them. Part 8. Every character is worse. In the first Mean Girls film, Janice and Damien take Katie under their wing on the second day of school. They notice that she's struggling to find friends in an environment she's never been in before, so they sort of show her the ropes.
Won't we get in some sort of trouble for this?
Why would we get you into trouble? We're your friends?
And you believe that. The film is very good at setting up these characters as caring people who actually want to be friends with Katie. The musical does this too, with an entire musical number in which Damien tells Katie everything she needs to know about the school, and the two decide to be friends with her.
Why, it's Janice and Damien too. We're not exactly joiners, but we'll be good friends too.
This is crucial to the story because they become friends with Katie before she even meets the plastics. This leads to Janice wanting Katie to spy on the plastics and tell them everything they say, which Katie is hesitant to do at first, but does so because she likes Janice. In Mean Girls 2024, at this point, Janice and Damien are sort of friends with Katie. They want to show her the ropes, sure, but they're hesitant to actually be her friend, which is strange. So when Janice asks Katie to spy on the plastics for her, it's questionable why she would even do that. Regina has been much nicer to Katie than Janice and Damien at this point.
Look at us. Would we ever ask you to do something bad?
Janice and Damien, as characters, are less grounded because of this. They seem to want to ruin Regina's life for their own gain, more than for Katie's sake. This is not helped by the placement of Janice and Regina's backstory reveal, which is right after Katie sees Aaron kissing Regina. Janice and Damien feel more selfless in the original, and hatch their plan to ruin Regina's life, mostly for Katie. This new version robs them of that trait. This new selfish characterization ruins the song I'd Rather Be Me, a song that was fighting an uphill battle to begin with, because Janice is no longer relatable. Her feelings of betrayal from Katie in this version don't feel justified because, well, were they ever really friends to begin with?
I will say you make me mad, and if you treat me bad, I'll say you're bad.
Sorry, I still can't get over how bad those lyrics are. Just another reason it feels like such a nothing burger of a resolution. Also, this climactic scene where Janice confronts Katie is downgraded considerably. This is one of my favorite scenes in the original film. The blocking is spectacular. It feels like a whirlwind. You're really put into the shoes of Katie as she's confronted by her former closest friend and confidant. Damien is driving his car in circles, and Janice is shouting from his sunroof. And Damien doesn't even stop driving until Katie says,
You know what? It's not my fault you're like in love with me or something. What?
Oh no, she did not.
This scene is pivotal, and it shows Katie's final transition into the thing that she once sought to destroy. It's one of the most uncomfortably realistic scenes in the film, and it gives me chills every time. It's entirely elevated by the performances of these three actors, and you can feel the deep betrayal in Janice's voice when she replies.
See, that is the thing with you plastics. You think that everybody is in love with you when actually everybody hates you.
And for the first time, you fully understand how much Janice cares about her relationship with Katie, and how much it hurts her to see what happened with Regina being repeated. In the new reboot, she just starts rapping.
It was your idea for me to pretend to be plastic.
Buddy, it's not pretend. You are as plastic as they come. You think your shit don't stink. You think the rest of us are dumb.
And Damien, for whatever reason, is riding his grandma's mobility scooter.
Janice, I cannot stop this jazz, and you know I have a curfew.
But like, she's not even on it. This is an element from the musical that they inexplicably kept. And then Janice belts,
No, it's fine, really fine.
which, yes, has a lot of power, but it lacks the simplicity, the realness, and the relationship-driven stakes we once had. I understand it, but mostly because I've seen the original film. And I'm not saying that I don't like that she's singing, this is a good place for a song, if we had the same context. It just doesn't feel justified, which I feel is so important. Katie, as I've already sort of gotten into, is also just much less of a compelling protagonist in this film. Everything she does just happens. There's so little real motivation behind any of her actions. For example, the scene in which Katie first kisses Aaron is pivotal to her character arc. It shows Katie becoming selfish in real time as she finally gets Aaron to tutor her in person and kisses him. Then, the moment he shows regret, she blurts out that Regina is cheating on him.
But look, there's good and bad to everybody, right? Regina's just... she's just more upfront about it.
Oh no, it was coming up. The word vomit. I didn't mean to say it, but...
She's cheating on you.
Katie had been holding on to that information because she didn't want to hurt Aaron, but the moment she doesn't get exactly what she wants, she uses it to her advantage. This moment, of course, is removed from the reboot. In fact, she just tells him as soon as she finds out.
And I'm only telling you because you're such a good friend.
He sort of becomes a little pawn.
Not only is this much weaker, but it doesn't feel in character for Katie. It feels much less realistic for a teenager to just tell someone that they're being cheated on, especially considering Katie's circumstances. The original film handles this in a way that a real teenager might, incorrectly, after trying to do the right thing. And then there's the talent show. Oh boy. The talent show. The talent show is maybe the worst change they made. In the original Mean Girls, the talent show is easily one of the most iconic scenes. It's been referenced time and time again by other media as it's quite a funny premise. The idea is that every year the Plastics perform a dance to Jingle Bell Rock, and it is both awful and deeply inappropriate for high schoolers. The scene includes so many of the most iconic parts of the movie, from Amy Poehler dancing in the audience with a big-ass camera to fetch.
That is so fetch. Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
It also shows the moment that Katie becomes popular. When Gretchen kicks the boombox off the stage, Katie picks up the song by singing it, getting the whole audience to join in. The reboot makes some pretty drastic changes to this scene. The first is that the song is no longer Jingle Bell Rock. It's this awful song written for the musical called Rockin' Around the Pole. It is, as I believe I mentioned, awful.
And we'll be rockin' around the pole where the northern lights are bright.
Post 9/11 Christmas music is dire, man. Then, rather than having the song stop and Katie continuing it, they just have Regina fall on her ass on stage.
We'll be talking about us in town. Yeah, we'll be rocking.
And then there's this horrible TikTok sequence. God, there's like 3 of these TikTok sequences in the movie.
So I went to the Christmas show and it was a mess, y'all.
Regina ate total shit. I think people saw her nipple.
That's just unprofessional.
This was kind of hilarious.
I mean, this is bad for a few reasons, if I even need to explain them. Okay, the first is that Regina, no pun intended, falling from grace in one fell swoop is just so much less subtle. The original film takes its time depicting Regina's downfall, showing every angle of it, from brutal phone attacks to giving her foot cream for her face. Here, all of those aspects are either cut or rushed. The second is that the original scene actually presents Katie as likable, which, need I remind you, this film has yet to do. And finally, it removes one of the most important moments in Katie's arc. Katie actually becomes popular because of her real self, her natural instinct to do something cool, to finish the song by singing it instead of standing in stunned silence. The new film makes her rise to popularity completely separate from the person she is. In fact, she becomes popular because TikTok thought she kind of ate doing that dance.
But you know, that Katie girl was kind of cute. You know, she stayed, she went.
All of these moments represent a bigger aspect of Katie's character that this new film lacks, which is her transition into becoming plastic. In the original film, you start to see her transition pretty early, and she spirals more and more until Janice finally yells at her in her cul-de-sac. The reboot lacks the slow burn of her transition, as if it just happens out of nowhere and not because it's her fault. Everything she does is influenced by an outside force. She literally becomes popular at school because of TikTok. She just changes like that. It ignores the crucial idea from the original film that we ourselves can become mean girls if we don't actively try not to be. All of the Plastics are made worse by not being mean at all, which I find interesting. Like in the original film, Karen and Gretchen are both mean girls because they're being influenced by Regina.
Oh, you can tell me. Hold on. Oh my god, she's so annoying. Who is? Who's this? Gretchen? Right. Hold on. God, she's so annoying.
I know.
And the new film just sort of treats them like pawns. Even Miss Norbury, Tina Fey's self-insert character, makes less sense in this version. In the original film, she acts as the voice of reason. She gets Katie to join the mathletes, and she pushes Katie not to dumb herself down for some guy.
Katie, I know that having a boyfriend may seem like the most important thing in the world right now, but you don't have to dumb yourself down to get guys to like you.
How do you know?
I know. How would I know, right? I'm divorced. I'm broke from getting divorced. The only guy that ever calls my house is Randy from Chase Visa. And you know why? Because I'm a pusher. I push people. I pushed my husband into law school. That was a bust. I pushed myself into working 3 jobs. And now I'm gonna push you, because I know you're smarter than this.
This is a really effective moment in the film because Miss Norbury acts as a person who's been through high school. She's gone through girls being brutally mean to her, and so she speaks from experience. She calls back to her divorce and her experience in life. She's relatable, and one of the only characters who's acted rationally in the film at this point. But her new monologue just strips it of all of these qualities.
Katie, I am not going to stop pushing you because I'm a pusher. And I know you're smarter than this. Maybe I should just push your seat away from Aaron's.
We've gone from a character who likely sees herself in Katie and cares about her students to a pusher. We don't know where she's coming from, we don't know her backstory, therefore this scene is just less effective. So yeah, none of the characters act within the reality of what their characters would do. They act out of service to the plot, to get to the next part you recognize, the next beat. They act as pawns in other people's stories.
You are a pawn
And that does not make a good movie. It makes a boring movie with no likable characters, no relatable characters. No characters, just vessels for your forced plot. Which brings me to my next point. Why did they do this? Part 9. Why? Money. Part 10, the war on movie. No, seriously, this movie is one of the least inspired things I've ever seen. The only reason they could have possibly made it was for money's sake. Here's how you can tell. For starters, Mean Girls is not a film begging for a remake. We've more than covered that. Next and most glaringly obvious is this.
What's that lip color?
Oh, it's e.l.f. O-Face.
Why do I feel the need to go buy every flavor of e.l.f. lip gloss right now? Wait, does it come in flavors? I actually don't know. Is lip gloss flavored?
A virus has been detected.
Okay, I don't think they have flavored e.l.f. lip gloss. That doesn't matter. The product placement in this movie is so in your face, it feels like they legally should have to disclose it's an ad.
Welcome to the ICMT State Math Championships, sponsored by SeatGeek.
Yeah, SeatGeek.
I guess they did just outright say it there. On top of the constant lip gloss and outward-facing tea bottles, there were extensive marketing campaigns before this film came out in which they reunited the original Mean Girls cast. And yeah, businesses love nothing more than to capitalize on your nostalgia. What's new? This is always sad to me because I feel like people just forget that reboots are almost always soulless and don't capture the magic that the original once did. Are you really gonna tell me that the new Wizards of Waverly Place is going to fire off the same dopamine in your brain that it did in the late aughts? I'm sorry to be the one to break this to you, but it likely won't. I think Mean Girls holds up, but I also think that I probably wouldn't have the same deep connection to it that I have now if I were to watch it for the first time today. But a lot of people are willing to take their chances on these new reboots, betting that maybe, just maybe, they'll be as happy as they were when these films first entered their lives. Perhaps if I go to see Will Smith Genie, he'll make me laugh as hard as I did when I was a kid. But you won't. You'll never laugh again. I'm totally joking. You probably will laugh again. We all do. Pardon my cliche, but life's a roller coaster. Augustus Waters hit the nail right on the head with that one. But the real roller coaster of life does go down. It just doesn't go backwards. The creative world is lush with ideas for new movies and new musicals. Why must we try so hard to go backwards? Well, that brings us right back to where we started. Money. Part 10, the war on movie musicals. I'm gonna be dramatic for a second, bear with me here. I think musicals are one of the most universally meaningful types of art out there. People around the world of differing ways of life might all connect to the music present in a musical. There's a reason that people still resonate with musical works that are centuries old. Music has a unique ability to evoke emotion out of anybody. And so I think it's important we honor this old-ass tradition of getting on stage, singing silly songs, and dancing sparkly dances. So it makes me sad to see so many film adaptations of musicals suffering so hard either in the box offices or critically because the people who made them had dollar signs in their eyes. I also think that film adaptations are great opportunities to improve upon shows. Grease did this by giving the show a plot. Jesus Christ Superstar did this by being pure camp. It can be done. It just seldom is anymore. On top of that, movie musicals are deeply ingrained into film history. The very first film with synchronized sound was a musical. It's horribly aged and racist and it sucks dick and you shouldn't watch it, but still. Films like Singin' in the Rain, The Sound of Music, and Top Hat are all deeply influential to cinema's history. This doesn't mean that every movie needs to be a musical again, but it's important to understand that the genre has a history. It's not always been like this. And that's not even to say that there aren't good movie musicals anymore. There certainly are. Wonka was really well directed, despite Timothy not being able to hold a tune. Tick Tick Boom is my favorite biopic I've ever seen, and utilizes the underappreciated tunes that Jonathan Larson wrote better than Broadway could. Even Disney still sometimes makes a banger. I'm tired of pretending that people don't like movie musicals, and I'm tired of Hollywood believing it too. It makes me so mad because they have the power to make the world love musicals again, and they simply don't do it. Unfortunately, Mean Girls is a bad movie musical, a comically bad one at that. And to many of the powerful people in Hollywood, they're gonna react to this by saying just that. People don't like movie musicals anymore. And that is nothing but sad. So we're pretty fucked then, right? Movie musicals are dead. Mean Girls just shoved the genre into its open grave, and we all watched it happen. We're doomed! Well, not quite. I think there is still maybe some hope for the genre. The past few months have been shockingly full of new movie musicals being released, with like a 50% success rate, maybe 25. I didn't see The Color Purple. Maybe I'm the problem. And like most people liked Wonka, right? Just have Paul King direct every movie musical and get someone else to star in them and write the music. On top of that, kitsch is coming back, and musical numbers are popping up in more and more unexpected places. I'm Just Ken was universally praised and just received an Oscar nomination, proving that the world loves silly show tunes. But it is easy to feel hopeless. Even if the world does secretly love musicals, Hollywood just can't seem to be consistent with the genre. My advice, be patient. One day, there will be a huge movie musical again. A one that enters the general zeitgeist, becomes a staple of pop culture, changes the world. But it probably will star James Corden. Hello, thank you so much for watching this video. Big thank you to my patrons whose names are rolling by here. If you're interested in joining the Patreon, I highly recommend you do so. However, I am quite biased. On there, you get my videos early, along with a monthly exclusive video voted on by the patrons. It's a really good time. Tiers start at $2, and if you want to check it out, the link is right there in the doobly-doo. I'm sorry it's been so long since I've uploaded a video. This one sort of took over my life, and I didn't work on anything else until it was completed, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. It was really fun to make. I don't really have anything to plug right now other than the Patreon, so I hope you all have had a lovely 2024, and I'm really excited to focus on some bigger projects this year, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, thank you again so much for watching, and thank you again to my lovely patrons, without whom this video would not be possible. So, goodbye. I love you.
That ICBM and the party will be come as you are. We will all burn together when we burn. There'll be no need to stand and wait your turn. When it's time for the fallout and St. Peter calls us all out, we'll just drop our agendas and adjourn.